$40. That's what I handed the man at the garden center every single spring for a jug of weed killer that promised to end all this once and for all. Picture it, early June, the sun's out. I've got a coffee in one hand, walking my own garden path, feeling good about the place. Then I see it, that first yellow bloom pushing up through the crack in the patio. Then another, then a whole crowd of them running along the fence line. Same spot, same weeds. Same week as last year. Here's the thing. Nobody in that garden aisle ever told me the jug in my hand was built to fail. Not fail completely, fail slowly. Fail just enough that I'd be back the next spring handing over another $40 for another jug. For years, I did the same three things. I sprayed the tops until they glistened. I yanked the big ones out by hand. And I waited for the label to work its promised magic. Every single year, the weeds came back thicker than before. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that the exact patch where you pull the weed grows back the fastest? Hold on to that, because the answer to that one question changed the way I see my entire garden. In this video, I'm going to show you two things. First, how to kill the weeds you have right now, fast, this weekend. Second, how to stop them from ever coming back at the root and at the seed. And then there's a third thing, one final method, older than any product on that shelf, free or close to it. It is the whole reason I'm making this video, and it's the reason my paths have stayed clear for 3 summers straight. But I'm going to make you wait for it, because it only makes sense once you understand why everything else on that shelf failed me first. Let me start with part 1, the weed that broke me, the one growing right through your patio and along your beds. The common perennial with the deep root, because that's the one that humiliated me the longest. Here's the small mystery I couldn't crack for years. I would spray a dandelion, watch it go brown, feel like a winner, and 2 weeks later it was back. Greener and angrier than before. So let me tell you what I was actually doing. When you spray a cheap contact weed killer, or when you pour it on straight from the bottle, you are burning the leaves. That's it. The green top shrivels, it turns brown, and your eyes tell you it's dead. But what is actually happening underneath is the important part. That dandelion has a taproot that can drive 10 inches down into your soil. The leaves died, the engine didn't. And a root that deep has enough stored energy to send up fresh leaves within days. Most people attack the part of the weed they can see, but the part that matters is the part they can't. That's the reframe that finally got through my thick skull. I was fighting the smoke and ignoring the fire. So here is what actually works, and I'll go from the simplest thing you can do this afternoon to the thing I reach for on the stubborn stuff. The simplest method costs you nothing but the kettle you already own. Boiling water on the weeds coming up through patio cracks, block paving, and gravel paths. I pour boiling water straight onto the crown of the plant, right where the leaves meet the root. Water at a rolling boil is around 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and that heat ruptures the plant cells on contact and cooks the top of the root system. For small weeds and hard surfaces, it is brutally effective and it costs nothing. I felt like a fool the first time I tried it, standing there with a kettle. Then I watched those weeds go and never come back in that crack, and I stopped feeling foolish. The second method is for the weeds in beds and along edges where boiling water is awkward. This is horticultural vinegar. Now listen closely, because this is where I wasted money for a year. The vinegar in your kitchen cupboard is about 5% acetic acid. It's too weak. It'll make a weed look sad, and that's about it. What you want is horticultural vinegar at 20% acetic acid. That is 4 times stronger, and it strips the waxy coating off the leaf and dries the plant out fast. I add a tablespoon of dish soap to a gallon so it sticks to the leaf instead of rolling off. I spray on a dry, sunny day because the sun does half the work of scorching the plant for me. You'll see wilting within hours. But I have to be very clear with you. Boiling water and vinegar are top killers. On an annual weed, a young weed, or a weed in a crack, they win. On a deep-rooted perennial like a mature dandelion or bindweed, they'll knock the top back, but that 10-inch root can still fight on. So for those, the oldest method beats them all, and it's my third one here. The knife and the wet ground. Here is the trick nobody told me. You do not pull weeds when the soil is dry. You pull them the day after a good rain, or after you've soaked the ground with a hose. When the soil is wet and loose, the whole root slides out instead of snapping off. Because here's the cruel part. I learned the hard way. Many perennial roots can regrow from a fragment left behind. Snap a dandelion root in dry soil, leave 2 inches of it down there, and you haven't killed it, you've pruned it. You've made it send up several new crowns where there was one. That is exactly why the spot you pulled grows back fastest. I was multiplying my own weeds and blaming the weather. I use a long, narrow blade, a weeding knife or an old bread knife, and I drive it straight down alongside the root and lever the whole thing out in one piece. 10 inches of root, gone, in one go. The physical thing you stand to lose if you keep snapping roots off is your whole summer. You'll spend it fighting the same plants over and over, and every broken root buys that weed another season in your soil. So now you can kill what you can see, and you can pull what's rooted. But knocking down the plants in front of you is only half the war, and honestly, it's the easy half. Because even if you clear every single weed today, your soil is holding a secret against you. And if you want to go even deeper into these methods, the ones that have been quietly working for generations, I want to tell you about something that helped me put it all together. A while back, I came across a set of guides called the Amish Lawn Guide, the Amish Soil Guide, and the Complete Amish Yard Field Edition. They document the exact land care practices that Amish growers have used for generations to keep soil healthy and weed pressure low without reaching for a single product off a shelf. The whole collection is $97, and the link is in the description. If you want the full picture behind what I'm showing you in this video, that's where I'd send you first. But let's get back to the seed bank, because this is where most people's efforts fall apart entirely. That brings me to part 2, the problem that outlasts every weed you can see, the buried seed bank, and this is the one that truly stops weeds for good, because until you understand this, you are just mowing the enemy, not beating him. Here's the blunt truth. The weeds you pulled this year are not the weeds you'll fight next year. Next year's weeds are already in your soil right now, waiting. Let me put a number on it that stopped me cold when I first learned it. A single patch of bare soil can hold thousands of viable weed seeds packed into the top few inches, and these seeds are patient. Some common weed seeds can stay alive and ready in the ground for years, and certain species have been shown to survive in soil for decades. There's a famous buried seed experiment that scientists started back in 1879, and seeds from it were still sprouting well over 100 years later. So when I tilled my beds or dug them over every spring to make them look neat, I thought I was tidying up. What was actually happening is that I was hauling a fresh batch of buried dormant seeds up to the surface and giving them exactly what they were waiting for. Most people dig their soil to clean it up, but what's actually happening is you're planting next year's weeds with your own shovel. And what those seeds are waiting for is the thing I never suspected. Light. This is the mechanism that changed everything for me. A huge number of weed seeds are triggered to germinate by a flash of light. They can sit an inch or two down in total darkness for years, completely dormant. The moment you turn the soil and expose them, even for a second, that light flash flips the switch and they wake up and grow. That's why bare, disturbed, freshly dug soil sprouts a green fuzz of weeds within days. You didn't bring the seeds in. They were always there. You just turned the lights on for them. So killing this year's weeds without dealing with the seed bank is like bailing a boat without plugging the hole. Here's how I plug it, from the cheapest floor up to what I'd call the professional move. Method 1 is the simplest change you can make, and it costs nothing. Stop digging, stop tilling, leave the soil alone. Every time you turn that ground, you're waking up another wave. When I stopped digging my beds over, the number of weeds coming up dropped so hard I thought something was wrong. Nothing was wrong. I'd simply stopped setting my own alarm clock for the seeds. Method 2 is smothering. Once a bed is cleared, I deny those seeds the light they need permanently. I lay down a layer of cardboard, plain brown cardboard with the tape peeled off, and I wet it down and cover it. It blocks light completely. The seeds beneath stay in the dark, they never get their trigger, and many of them exhaust themselves and die still buried. This is an old market garden trick, and it works because it attacks the mechanism, not the symptom. Method 3 is the one a professional grower reaches for when clearing a badly infested patch, and it has a name that's been around far longer than any chemical. It's called the stale seedbed. Here's how it works, and it's clever. You prepare your bare soil, then you deliberately water it and wait 10 to 14 days. You are inviting the weeds to grow. You let that top layer of seeds wake up and sprout. Then, before they set any new seed, you kill that whole flush with a hoe skimmed shallow across the surface or a quick pass of boiling water or vinegar without digging deep. You've just emptied the top inch of the seed bank on your terms. Do it once or twice, and the number of seeds left near the surface in the zone where they can actually reach the light drops dramatically. Growers were using this method to beat weeds long before anyone bottled a spray. Now, if this is the first time anyone's explained to you why your weeds actually come back and it's starting to click, do me one favor and hit that subscribe button. This channel is for people who want the mechanism, the real reason underneath the stuff the garden aisle will never put on a label. That's all I do here. Subscribe and stick with me, because this next part is the one I sat on for the whole video. That brings me to part 3, prevention. And this is it. The final method, the reason I made this whole video, the thing that keeps my paths and beds clear year after year with almost no work. I call it blocking the light, and it does with one action what all my spraying and pulling never could. Here's the whole thing in one line. If a weed seed never sees light, it never wakes up. So I make sure the soil in my garden never gets that flash of light again. The material is the most ordinary thing in the world. Mulch, wood chip, bark, shredded leaves, straw, whatever you can get cheaply or free. And the number that matters, the one detail I got wrong for years, is the depth. You need a layer 3 inches deep. Not 1 inch, not a thin dusting, 3 inches. At that depth, no light reaches the soil surface, so the seeds already down there stay dormant in the dark, and any new seed that blows in lands on top of dry mulch where it can't root. I put it down once, in spring, 3 inches thick over every clear bed and border. Here's why this beats everything on the shelf. A weed killer treats the weed after it has already won, after it's up and growing and stealing water from your plants. Mulch stops the weed from ever being born. One attacks the symptom forever, every season. The other attacks the cause once. This is exactly the knowledge those old growers had before there was a single jug on a single shelf. They knew bare soil is an open invitation and covered ground is a closed door. Then the chemical products came along, and suddenly the smart, cheap, one-time fix got buried under a shelf of things you have to buy again and again. The knowledge never went away. Some gardeners just quietly kept covering their soil and never said much about it. Now you've got it too, and what does it save you? I was spending $40 a spring on weed killer plus hours of my weekends spraying and pulling, and I got nothing lasting for it. A load of mulch laid 3 inches deep once a year costs me a fraction of that and buys me back whole weekends. Over 3 years, that's well over $100 in product I've simply stopped buying, and dozens of hours I've got back. So which approach is for you? If your problem is weeds and patio cracks, block paving, and gravel paths, boiling water is your fast, free answer, and you don't need anything else. If your fight is in your beds and borders, the real winner is clearing them properly by pulling on wet ground, then locking the soil down with 3 inches of mulch so it never comes back. And if you're taking on a big, badly overgrown patch from scratch, use the stale seed bed to empty the top layer first, then smother it with cardboard and mulch, and you'll turn the worst ground you own into the easiest. Now, once you lay that mulch down and your beds go quiet, you're going to run into one new problem, and I don't want it to catch you off guard the way it caught me. As that wood chip mulch breaks down over the season, it can pull a little nitrogen from the very top of your soil as it rots, and if you've got hungry plants right at the surface, you might see them look a touch pale. It's fixable, it's simple, and it's the exact thing that trips people up right after they finally beat the weeds. So if you're worried about that, or you're already seeing it, leave me a comment with just the word mulch, and I'll know to help you with it. Because here's what this really comes down to. Weeds were never some force of nature you were doomed to lose to every summer. That was a story that sold jugs. The real answer is older, cheaper, and quieter than anything on that shelf, and it was quietly taken from you and replaced with a bill that came due every spring. You just took it back. My next video shows you exactly how to keep your soil rich and your plants deep green under that mulch so you get the clean beds without the pale leaves. Subscribe so it lands in front of you the moment it's out, because you've done the hard part now, and I don't want you to trip on the easy one. Before you go, if this video helped, there's a deeper version waiting for our members. You can ask me your own question and a real person answers, and you'll be among thousands of folks just like you. Point your phone's camera at the code on screen. It takes less than a minute. And you can cancel anytime, no risk. Now that those weeds are gone, let me show you the one simple thing your lawn needs every June to stay thick, green, and healthy all summer long. It's starting right here.